going to be doing a writing class. You'll notice that I have an iPad connected to a machine, and if you track my hand, there's the other half of the machine, and it reads itself. So as I walk around, the iPad is going to turn like this, okay? This is just on because we're doing a writing class. Some of the 6th and 7th grade teachers have asked to see a writing class, so that's why this is on. Please don't track the camera. We're going to be professional so that we can impress those teachers. Here's what we're doing for today. If you track my agenda board, you'll notice that it's all one color. That means that there's one really big goal that we're going to be working on today. This whole week we've been practicing writing really professionally using subjects and predicates. And we've been practicing using only the most essential ideas when we take notes on a story. Today we're going to be combining those two skills in order to write a professional fiction summary. We'll be starting that this morning and finishing it this afternoon. Before we can write a summary of a story, though, we need to make sure that we've read the whole entire story. So we've been reading The Bracelet, Part 1 and Part 2. Our do now is to finish reading The Bracelet Part 3. So you're going to get that and we're going to read that together. Mrs. Paris, could you please help me hand out the bracelet? Thank you, madam. And Rose, as soon as you get the bracelet, please flow it out and write your header on it. For the 5. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Great, track me here. As you look at the do now, you'll notice the story is pretty long. Mrs. Paris and I are going to take turns reading the paragraphs out loud. Sometimes I might stop and ask you some questions. While we're reading, if you'd like to highlight character, setting, conflict, and resolution, you are welcome to do that. And if you want to write down any character feelings as we're reading, you're welcome to do that as well. Are we good to go, Mrs. Paris? I'm ready. Before we get started, what happened in the story so far? What were the characters, setting, conflict, and resolution in the story so far? Talk to your shoulder partner.
Their actions, and then
And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Talk to me about some facts of this story, Isaiah.
Some facts of the story is the characters were Lori, the mom, and the sister. And when the second part of the story last left off, I remember they were packing to leave to the internment camp.
Perfect. Isaiah, that's a great answer. You told me about the conflict, setting, and the resolution. The characters. That's a merit. Why is it called The Bracelet? Why isn't it called The Move, or Internment Camp, or Rory? Why is it called The Bracelet, Edward?
Because her friend Lori gave her a present.
Whose friend?
Rory's friend Lori gave her a present that was a bracelet, and she said that she'd never ever take it off.
Beautiful. That's exactly what I was looking for. Are you ready to continue reading?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Please track the paper. Keep in mind you can take notes if you want to. Our goal is to finish this in about 10 minutes here. Would you like to go first or second?
I'll go second.
Okay, I'll go first. When the bus turned into Tanforan, There were more armed guards at the gate, and I saw barbed wire strung around the entire grounds. I felt as though I were going into a prison, but I hadn't done anything wrong.
We streamed off the buses and poured into a huge room, where doctors looked down our throats to see if we had any disease. Then we were given our housing assignments. The man in charge gave Mama a slip of paper. We were in Barrack 16, apartment 40.
Mama, I said, we're going to live in an apartment. The only apartment I had ever seen was the one my piano teacher lived in. It was in an enormous building in San Francisco, with an elevator and thick carpeted hallways. I thought how wonderful it would be to have our own elevator. A house was all right, but an apartment seemed elegant and special.
We walked down the racetrack, looking for Barrack 16. Mr. Noma, a friend of Papa's, helped us carry our bags. I was so busy looking around, I slipped and almost fell on the muddy track. Army barracks had been built everywhere, all around the racetrack and even in the center oval.
Let me pause you here for a second. Highlighters down, please. What did you learn about the setting so far? What have we learned about the setting so far? Please track Stephanie.
She's in the internment camp, going from her apartment.
Tell me more. I need some more details. I agree. Tell me some details about the internment camp or the apartment. Nathan.
So they got here and they were assigned to an apartment, and they're assigned to an apartment, and they're all around like this muddy, like they're all around this like, so now they're finding their apartment.
How do they feel about finding their apartment? We're going to maybe make an inference for this one. How do they feel about finding their new apartment? Because they didn't want to leave their house. Talk to your shoulder partner. How do they feel about, keep that hand up, no. How do they feel about going to their new apartment, Gita?
I am sure that they are excited because in the third paragraph it says an apartment seemed elegant and special. I think she's excited.
Great use of evidence, Gita. That's a merit. Yes, Mrs. Paris.
I also remembered from like a really long time ago when we were talking about punctuation, that we talked about how exclamation points can show feeling. So I think that Gita did a really good job of looking at evidence, and I also noticed the exclamation point. She sounds like she's really excited.
Awesome, thank you. Should we continue reading? Did you end where it said Mr. Noma?
I ended with the center oval.
Oh, okay, so I'm starting right here, Mr. Noma. You look good, highlighters are coming back out. Mr. Noma pointed beyond the track toward the horse stables. I think your barrack is out there.
He was right. We came to a long stable that had once housed the horses of Tanforan, and we climbed up the wide ramp. Each stall had a number painted on it, and when we got to 40, Mr. Noma pushed open the door.
Well, here it is, he said, apartment 40.
The stall was narrow and empty and dark. There were 2 small windows on each side of the door. 3 folded army cots were on the dust-covered floor, and 1 light bulb dangled from the ceiling. That was all. This was our apartment, and it still smelled of horses. Mama looked at my sister and then at me. It won't be so bad when we fix it up, she began. I'll ask Mrs. Simpson to send me some material for curtains. I could make some cushions, too, and, well, she stopped. She couldn't think of anything more to say.
Mr. Noma said he'd go get some mattresses for us. I'd better hurry before they're all gone. He rushed off. I think he wanted to leave so that he wouldn't have to see Mama cry. But he needn't have run off because Mama didn't cry. She just went out to borrow a broom and began sweeping out the dust and dirt. Will you girls set up the cots? She asked. Pause here. Tracking. Gito said they're really excited to go to their new apartment. They think it will be wonderful. What's the truth about this new apartment? And how do they feel about it? What's the truth about this new apartment? And how do they feel about it? Lucy.
I feel like they're disappointed because they thought it was going to be special and elegant, but it smelled like horse and it was dirty.
Why does it smell like horses? My apartment smells like cats, but that's because I have a cat. So why does their apartment smell like horses? What would you like to call him, Mrs. Paris?
Eliani. Maybe it smells like horses because maybe horses used to live there, and it said, it didn't say door, it said a stall door, and horses, they don't get big doors, so they look stalls.
So where is the apartment actually located, Eliani?
In a farm,
What building on a farm?
a horse path.
A horse. What's the word for it? Is there a fancy word for this?
There is, and I actually on the first page I was going to ask you about the word. I couldn't remember what it meant. Edward, can you help us out?
I think it smells like horses because it's like a horse's stable.
Oh, I did see that word. The horse stables. Get out of here. Wait, they're living in a barn? Get out of here. Get out of here, seriously? Okay, we gotta keep going. Your turn, Mrs. Harris.
It was only after we put up the last cot that I noticed my bracelet was gone. I've lost Lori's bracelet, I screamed. My bracelet's gone.
We looked all over the stall and even down the ramp. I wanted to run back down the track and go over every inch of ground we walked on, but it was getting dark, and Mama wouldn't let me.
I thought of what I'd promised Lori. I wasn't ever going to take the bracelet off, not even when I had to take a shower. And now I had lost it on my very first day in camp. I wanted to cry.
I kept looking for it all the time we were in Tanforan. I didn't stop looking until the day we were sent to another camp called Topaz in the middle of a desert in Utah. And then I gave up.
But Mama told me never mind. She said I didn't need a bracelet to remember Lori, just as I didn't need anything to remember Papa or our home in Berkeley or all the people and things we loved and had left behind.
Those are things we can carry in our hearts and take with us no matter where we are sent, she said.
And I guess she was right. I've never forgotten Lori, even now.
Highlighters down. What's the resolution to this story? This is it. This is where it stops. What's the resolution? Talk to your shoulder resolution. What's the resolution here?
The resolution is that Mama told her that if you lost the bracelet, you could keep Laura in your heart.
Okay, add on. It's a good piece of evidence. Add on. Gilberto. Loud, please. Cornell's doing some crazy stuff over there.
The resolution is that she won't forget important people like her papa and Lori.
That's a really great point too. So as I'm looking at the resolution for this story, there's not an event that fixes everything, right? Which is weird, because in all the stories we've read so far, they trick the lion goes away, she cheats at Tanaika, there's a clear fix to the problem. In this story, there's not really a super clear resolution to the conflict. It's sort of like a feeling that the character has, which is interesting. Mrs. Paris, anything you want to add about this story, or should we start looking at our notes for today to try to summarize the whole thing?
I think we could start looking at our notes. I'm really impressed by people going back and looking at the text and finding evidence. I thought that was really great. And I really like that this was, I found the resolution kind of confusing.